What's going on, everyone? Welcome into another edition of GC Live. I am your host, Jack Veltri, and I am joined by a very special guest, my co-host for the day, and hopefully every week moving forward. He's a 2010 College World Series champion for your South Carolina Gamecocks, former right-handed pitcher, and a fellow Yankees fan. My man, Ethan Carter. Ethan, welcome aboard, man. How are you?
What's going on, Jack? Man, thank you so much for having me on. This is a blessing to be on this, and I can't wait to talk some Gamecock baseball.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about today, obviously, and there's been a lot going on since the Clemson sweep over the weekend, where Clemson unfortunately swept the Gamecocks. But before we dive into all that, got to talk to you guys about our sponsor real quick above us here, presenting sponsor Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans. So if you're in the market to buy a home or you just need help with your mortgage, but you have no clue where to begin, got good news for you. Clint is your guy to call. He'll hook you up. He's been in the mortgage industry for more than 20 years. He's a lifelong Gamecock fan. He's also a longtime supporter of Gamecock Central and all of our GC Live programs. So if you're interested, give him a call, 803-422-6797. The NMLS number for him is 71597, or you can go to clinthammond.com for more info. So, Ethan, like I said, got a lot to talk about, man. Tough weekend for South Carolina, but they've looked a lot better in these last two midweek games they played. Obviously, we were texting a little bit about it these last few days. Beat Davidson 7-3 on Tuesday, and then yesterday, I think they played their best game of the year against Citadel. What'd you think? What are your initial takeaways from what you saw in these last two games?
Yeah, the main takeaway and kind of the takeaway I've had from this whole season is the pitching kind of from top to bottom has been really good. Out, save for an inning here or there, and all the games they've played, the pitching has really given them a chance to do it. And then on the other side of it, I thought these were their best at bats, kind of the last two games, especially after tough, like I said, that tough weekend series against Clemson. That bats were a lot better. I think there were only 5 Ks against Davidson from the offensive side, and then last night there was only there was 8, but that bats just seemed to be getting more comfortable. They've been seeing live pitching now for almost a month. So, you can tell that things are starting to fall into place.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And again, I thought the at-bats looked great last night. Like, seriously, I think just about every aspect of last night's game, I mean, even Paul Maneri was saying it after to the media, like, that was the most complete game he's seen this team play. And I think it's true because you get 7 innings of one-run ball from Jarvis Evans. You get 5 guys with multi-hit games. I mean, Bo Hollins and Ethan Petrie both had 3 hits. Evan Stone in the two-hole last night went deep. So, Maneri's pushing the right buttons right now. And the defense, as usual, looks pretty good. So I think the pitching and the defense have never really been the question mark, if you will, for this team. It's always been, all right, the offense had a really bad weekend against Clemson. Can they get right with 6 non-conference games left to go before you take on Oklahoma next weekend? And I think we're starting to see a little bit of that offense really shining right now. But I will ask, outside of Ethan Petrie, Nathan Hall, your guys like that, who have you liked so far at the plate? Who do you feel like is kind of starting to progress a little bit?
I mean, you mentioned Evan last night. If I feel like if Evan Stone's providing you that kind of offense, that your team's gonna have a really good chance on that day, especially with the other guys around them. I think Kennedy's had some real good at bats. I know he had the shoulder issue over the weekend, and I know coach said that he should be good to go this weekend. So I think getting Kennedy back in there with some of the other guys starting to come around. I know that Scobie, he's had a couple good games, and it's always good for a young guy to kind of get those at bats in these midweek because again, kind of like I said earlier, we're not even a month into the season. So, some of these guys are still, getting their sea legs under them. It's not, the inner squads are great. Those games early on, against guys, on your own team, they're awesome, but it is a totally different feel when, you're going against other teams.
You mentioned Kennedy Jones with the injury before. We'll get into that here in a little bit, but you obviously have a lot of experience going through a little stretch like this where, everyone's kind of, I don't want to say overreacting because you get swept by Clemson and that's not ideal, but it's still so early in the year, man, to where it's like you got so many games left to go. The SEC play hasn't even started yet. And, back in 2010, man, I mean, we've talked about this before. You guys lost to Clemson in that 3-game series. Heck, game 3 was a 19-6 loss. And even the weekend before that, you guys went down to ECU and lost that series. And obviously ECU is a very good program, as we know now, but it's you guys versus them. And it's like, you guys probably felt you should have won that series. So I will ask, what was it kind of like back then going through that stretch? And what did you guys kind of do to get out of it? Because obviously you guys went on to win the national championship that year.
Yeah, a lot of it. I mean, I know people, it's been 15 years now, so it's been a while. So memories might not be that long, but kind of a lot of the same things that's going on with this team. That weekend series against ECU, I think every game was decided by 1 run. If it wasn't 1, it was 2 runs. We blew 2 leads late, and they were 4-3 and 3-2, if my memory serves me correctly. And then Clemson, those were both, or the first 2 were very close games. They got the first one, we got the second one, and then Sunday was what it was. So a lot of the same things in that. The offense was taking a little bit to get going. They had some big weekends early, and then once we started facing a little more quality pitching, those guys were still, getting up to speed, and the pitching was doing its part to kind of keep us in those games, and that really served us later on. We played in tight, tough games early, so that when we got to we had to go to Vanderbilt Friday, third SEC weekend, and we saw Sonny Gray, we tagged him for 3 early, and then we were able to hold on because we'd been in this kind of situation. So like I said, a lot of the same things that's kind of been plaguing or plagued us this past weekend, and that offense is still trying to find its footing a little bit, pitching, keeping in games, and then a Sunday that just kind of got away from them, and those are the kinds you just kind of flush and try to find the positives that you can from the series as a whole, and not dwell on that one last game where it just didn't look good for anyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've heard so many times before, whether it's from former guys or Maneri or whoever, that like you really don't know what you have until you get to that first weekend in SEC play, and then you kind of know, like, okay, these are your guys, and this is who you're counting on stuff. I think South Carolina knows its rotation, knows pretty much most of its starters. The bullpen, I've heard from Maneri is a little bit, still trying to figure it out, obviously, but I think they have a good team in place, man. And again, I think it really just was one bad weekend, because it's not like they played terrible at all. Like, again, keep in mind, a lot of these I think all 3 games were like going into the 8th or 9th inning, 1-run deficit. So it's not like South Carolina was, getting blown out or anything like you guys had gotten in game 3 or whatever in 2010. So it could be worse, I think. And look, getting swept is not ideal, but you move on. And these last 2 games, they played a lot better.
Yeah, and they had base runners. The opportunities were there, and that's just coming up with that one hit that kind of gets everything jump started and gets everything rolling. So yeah, I think those guys are there. I mean, again, you think back 2010. I think those 2 series we were just speaking on, Whit Merrifield was playing third base for us, I think, at that time. And then, by SEC play, he's in right field, Jackie's in center. We got Adrian at third, and things have kind of, worked themselves out, So there's, like you said, we don't never want to get swept, especially by those people. But the things, especially offensively, you've got to kind of find the balance of getting guys in routines, getting guys comfortable, and being in the same role day in, day out, but also kind of tinkering to find where that spark plug can be, in the middle, or, especially the bottom half of the lineup. So I think especially these guys are in a very good spot. And, these, next, I guess, 4 games now before SEC play starts, are going to be good as far as building on the momentum from these last two and really getting in a good groove heading into that Oklahoma series.
Yeah, and again, I think these next four, you got Morehead State this weekend, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, and then you got Georgia State coming to town next Wednesday, and then you play Oklahoma, and that series is at home. So I think it's a huge plus for South Carolina. And look, if they go into conference play, what are they, 11-3 right now? If they were 15-3 going into Oklahoma, I think you're feeling really good about where this team is at. And I know it's not ideal to get swept by Clemson, but would you rather see South Carolina drop 2 of 3 and lose a random midweek game to, like, say they lose to Citadel? Doesn't look good on the RPI and stuff now. Heck, Winthrop just beat Oklahoma State yesterday. So South Carolina's RPI is looking a lot better, and I think that's about where you want it to be at 15-3 going into that first weekend.
Yeah, no, I mean, this time of year is the midweek games are important. Speaking of Morehead State, they had a real close game with Louisville this past week. They think they only lost 9-8 to Louisville in a midweek game. So these games during the midweek are so important. We didn't lose a midweek game in 2010. Like that was one of the cool things that when we look back on, it's like we lost some games here or there, but midweek we took care of business. And those are the times to, kind of, what Coach was saying, the bullpen's still not quite figured out yet, roles defined. Those midweeks are where you kind of define those roles. Those are the games where, we got great depth, we got great length out of the starters, this week, but those are generally ones where, 4 or 5 innings from the starter. And then, you kind of piece together the bullpen, see where guys, how they do coming out in the 5th versus the 7th and those kind of things. So I think they're in a really good spot. Again, if you blind resume at 15-3, you're thrilled. Of course the 3 losses coming to Clemson aren't fun, but we'll see them later on. Always think we might see them later on, and then we'll be prepared for that.
Yeah, for sure. Now, getting into injuries a little bit, like I said before, Paul Mainieri did speak to the media earlier today, and we got a laundry list of injuries to go through, man. It's a lot, but Kennedy Jones, you mentioned him earlier. Mainieri did say he doesn't feel any pain or restriction with his left shoulder when he's been taking swings today. And he did say Kennedy wasn't going to take batting practice on the field today, but of course 10 minutes after Mainieri's done speaking, you see Kennedy out there taking rips, and I'm like, oh, Paul, that's classic Paul Mainieri right there.
That's some veteran stuff right there too.
Yeah.
From Kennedy. Kennedy's pulling the junior senior card of being like, I'm okay to hit out here today.
And I saw him out in the outfield too, shagging some fly balls and stuff. So I think he's going to be good to go for tomorrow, and that's the expectation. And then we got a few, that's the best news probably. The other news is just not good overall. Gavin Breland, who last night at Citadel made a fantastic catch on a pop-up and foul ground that he dove right into not Citadel's dugout, but like the fencing right in front of it. So he crashed into there, and he's got a high ankle sprain, which we'll see what that leads to. It's not a fracture, so he's going to be out this weekend, but we don't know exactly how long. Not even Mainieri really knows how long he's going to be out. Talmadge Lecroy's out this weekend as well at catcher, so that's your starting catcher right there, out with a broken thumb this weekend. The hope is that he's able to come back maybe sometime next week, get him ready for Oklahoma. And then the last big piece of news is Dalton Mayshore. He got an MRI on his hip, and that was not great, according to Mainieri. And he's going to try to play through it, apparently, and they're going to use some different treatment as opposed to just surgery. But I want to get back to the catcher side of things real quick, because I think that's very, very interesting news, is that you're down 2 catchers this weekend. You only have Max Coffer and Ryan Bakes this weekend. And I've had a lot of people ask, and even we asked Mainieri yesterday, who's your emergency catcher option? And funny enough, I think you'll like this, is that he was saying Will Tippett would be like an option maybe, as like, because think about it. He's played every single position you could think of.
Yep.
It's not some solidified thing, but that was the first name that came to mind. So he said he's going to go around, take a poll to see who's available who's ever caught before, basically.
Yeah, no, I mean, because that was going to be my question when we were going through it, because I'd missed that part of what he'd said today, but that was going to be my question. Who is the emergency catcher if something else kind of wacky happens? No, I mean that's stuff, and I know that was kind of the one position coach said coming into the year that was kind of, unsettled as is, and I thought Talmadge has done a good job, and the other and Braylon and the other guys have too. So, it's just an opportunity these other guys have, should take advantage of, because you go out there, have a couple hot weekends, and things change, but. No, Will's an interesting choice for the emergency. I mean, you got to take what you can get there. Whatever. If it comes to Will, then we're probably in a little bit of trouble, anyways. But that was gonna be my question for you: is that who that was going to be?
I just genuinely don't know who they have that could literally catch. Like, we were talking with Henry Kazmar today, and he's just starting shortstop, but it's like. He said the last time he caught was when he was 13. So it's like, I think that's what you're going to get with a lot of these guys, is that you're going to have a lot of guys that if Maneri's going around actually asking them, hey, like, have you ever caught before? Probably going to be like, yeah, not since like travel ball. I think you could probably, like, if I had to take and I was looking at the roster today, I'm like, all right, who could actually catch realistically? KJ Scobie screams.
Like, that was my first thought.
I'm like, he looks like he probably has caught before. And it's not that far-fetched for a guy playing third base or even first base, honestly, more realistically, to have caught before. So he, honestly, if I had to take a guess, I wouldn't be shocked if he somehow has some catching experience. But right, like, if you ever got to the point where it's like Bakes, Coffer, they get hurt, then you're screwed, essentially.
Yeah, because the other thing is because Braylon's play happened last night, is it's not like there are many bullpens being thrown right now to where you could even have Will or KJ or anyone get behind the dish to catch a pin to even see what it would be like. So yeah, it's you're hoping for good help for Bakes and Coffer, and you get through this weekend. You find out how Talmadge's thumb's doing. You find out about Braylon's ankle and everything. You get through this weekend, and then you can reevaluate.
No, most definitely. And again, the hope is that you're going to get Talmadge back for next week, whether it's the midweek or the weekend series, and then you go from there. And look, I know Talmadge hasn't really been hitting too much this year, but Maneri's been happy with his defense and stuff. And you got Braylon, who's been very high on Maneri's, getting some more playing time this week, obviously starting 2 games, and then the other 2 guys. So we'll see what happens. But the other thing is that Maneri pointed out today, weekend rotation remaining the same. Matthew Becker Friday, Jake McCoy on Saturday, Dylan Eskew on Sunday. I mean, it's not really a surprise, but do you like it? And how do you feel about? I mean, you used to pitch obviously a little bit, so I've heard. How do you like what the rotation has looked like so far?
I think they've been great, man. I like keeping it where it is. Obviously Dylan had to be pushed back because of it was his back that tightened up. So obviously Dylan had to be pushed back. So I like keeping it where it is. I think McCoy and Becker have been outstanding. I don't think you can ask but so much more of this staff, or at least staff as a whole, but best stuff, especially the starters. I think those guys have been nails, and it's good to see that early on, because as it starts to heat up, as the weather starts to get warmer, the bats start to become more alive, but those guys start to feel a little more comfortable too. It's you're not having to work as hard to get your body to wake up and feel the juices flowing. It is more of a, okay, you, especially in that Columbia heat, you go down there and you throw 2 warm-up pitches and you're like, okay, I've got a lather going. It's we're not having to work as hard to get to max velocity now.
I'm glad you mentioned the heat, because dude, the weather has just been so weird lately. Like, man, 2 weeks ago, think about it, 2 weeks ago when they played Queens in that midweek game, it was like 30-something degrees. and luckily I wasn't there. I sent an intern to that game. I'm like, I'm not going to that. But dude, last night, wind blowing everywhere. It's like 50-something degrees. I mean, people have talked about it all the time, but from a player standpoint for you, I don't know if you had to deal with like that type of like weather back in 2010. Columbia, obviously the heat is one thing that is, something that's always inevitable. But is the weather like a real thing that like players like actually like, get concerned about or have to deal with all the time?
Definitely, it's definitely in the back of your mind. That ECU series was one of the coldest weekends of baseball I've ever been a part of. And I don't think I pitched that weekend. So I was just sitting there in a jacket freezing the whole time. So I wasn't even able to even get out there and like throw some pitches and get my body moving and everything. I was hanging out for that series. But yeah, it's definitely something you think about, and you want to think that, once the game starts, you kind of block it out. And for the most part you do, but because baseball is such, unless you're a pitcher, is such a, stop and go sport, it is, there is something, that you have to be mentally tough about of, all right, yeah, I'm a little chilly here, but we've got to make the next play. We got to be ready for the next play. So it's not fun. I'd much rather play in hot weather than cold weather. And I think most guys would say, I was thinking about it, seeing the updates from you with the beanies and the jackets and everything. But I was thinking that, a lot of these schools, especially early on, come play us because it's warm. They can't play where they are. And I just how mad those guys have to be getting down here. Like, we thought we were escaping this.
Dude, the irony of just like Milwaukee coming here a few weeks ago, like it's like, yeah, come play in a tropical paradise. Yeah, you never can tell. And like the weather this weekend is just so hit or miss. Like 64 is the high tomorrow, and it's going to be colder at night because it's a 7 p.m. first pitch.
Yeah.
And then Saturday 74 is the high, so that'll be nice. But then Sunday, of course, 56 is the high and a 50% chance of rain. It's so weird. But you said you'd rather pitch in the heat. Did you what was it like pitching in the heat when it's, obviously Columbia Heat's a real thing in June, man. You're pitching in regionals, supers.
The supers at Coastal was hot. I remember like a couple of the fans having to go underneath because we were playing at the old Pelican Stadium. And I remember because the third base dugout, the bullpen was off to the side. So you could be in the dugout, but then you could, you'd go out. But for the most part, we would hang out in the bull. And I mean, you just sat there and baked. And then the first base bullpen was out in right field and there was no cover. And you just sat there. And I think the way it was, you had to sit up on something to see the field. So we were just sitting there baking for so long. And I got into that game too. And I was so ready when, got to pitch, because I was like, okay, I get to go into the dugout now. I get to get under some shade and not have to worry about it. And it's just, it is tough, that June. Because I mean, you sometimes can catch a breeze and all that, but I mean, there are other days, especially in the Michael Roth bullpen out there and at Ray Tanner Field, you can just bake against that wall.
Man, yeah, you guys. There's not much shade out there either. You got
no,
you got the 3 seats out there, but I'm surprised. I don't think I've ever seen it before. But guys bring an umbrella or something, like a beach chair out there. That's something, I don't know. Maybe Coastal. I'm sure Coastal has that since they're out by the beach. But
I wouldn't doubt it. But yeah, no, I mean, there's not, like I said, especially at home. There's you have that little covering where the bench is, and like you said, that fits. Once you have the water cooler up there, it fits maybe 2 or 3. But then once guys start getting hot, you don't want to stand back there, catch friendly fire if something goes off a glove. So yeah, it can get cooking out there. I'd much rather cook, because then like I said, I'm only going to throw a couple warm up pitches. And then we're good. It's not nearly as much as ramp up time.
Yeah, and South Carolina got a big. I think this is still a big series for them. You bring up ramping up because you got SEC play next weekend. Oklahoma come to town. This is your last kind of chance, really, to see what you've got in a weekend setting before you get to midweek. You're going to be throwing random guys and stuff. You hope you can maybe get Jarvis Evans back on the mound next week and you get another start like that, because Paul Mainieri did say he wants to see Evans maybe, or anyone in general, be developed into a midweek starter. But this weekend's huge, man. Morehead State coming to town. And, when you're looking at this weekend, I don't know who you guys played the weekend before SEC started, but from your perspective, how important is this weekend for South Carolina?
It's definitely important because you kind of want to know where things are going into the SEC. Obviously, things are fluid, injuries, certain guys, are hot, not whatever, but it's definitely important from a mindset of, okay, we're not doing the 4:00 or 6:00 Friday starts or, all that. All right. We're starting to get into a rhythm of, okay, we're playing Friday this time, Saturday this time, Sunday this time. And that's how it's going to be for a lot of the season. And yeah, with a team like Morehead State, again, they've played some tough competition. They've played Kentucky. They've played Louisville. I kind of went through their box scores. They've had some big, scoring days. So a lot of that was, some not quality pitching that they've been facing. So I think they're going to see, 3 really high quality arms for, especially, from the starters who we can guarantee is going to throw. So I think it's going to be good for them to really pound the zone and the team kind of take that next step forward, especially offensively. Did coach kind of give any indication that the lineup's going to, start to settle in a little bit here, especially with kind of I put it into a blender, the last 2 games against Clemson.
Man, yeah, it's definitely been put into a blender. I think I don't know the exact stat, but I'm sure, I think at this point, man, through the first, 14 games, I think he's ran out a different lineup every game. And he did say, it's fine. I think it's fine to tinker with the lineup this time of year, because you can kind of work with what you got. And if guys are going through slumps and someone's not playing well, make a change. He's kind of shown that he's, proven that he can make the hook real quick. But he did say Bo Hollins will be starting. He'll continue to start at first base as long as he continues to play well. So you put Petrie out in right field, Hollins at first. I'm interested to see what happens at second base, because Nolan Naraki has definitely struggled a lot lately. He didn't play yesterday. Jordan Carrion got the start. I would like to see Carrion at second base tomorrow, because he does a lot of the little things right. He had a few nice sack bunts yesterday, fielded his position well. He's just doing stuff that Naraki, no disrespect, just hasn't really done so far this year.
Yep.
Outside the 1 homer he hit against Milwaukee, nothing really too impressive stands out. He's made routine errors that guys like Carrion are not making. And then, the rest of the infield is, Kazmar and Scobie. And then the outfield, we'll see. I'm assuming Kennedy Jones will be back out there, assuming he plays left field. We'll see. But I think everything stays the same, and then you just kind of figure out, okay, what's the catcher position look like? Who's starting tomorrow? Is it going to be Bakes? Is it going to be Coffer? How do you kind of handle that?
Yep. No, and I think that will be, I'm with you on the second base. I'd like to see that change, especially at least for the first couple games of the series. If it's something where you go back to it on Sunday, you back to Naraki, for that Sunday game, definitely. And, it's not opposed to, making some changes in game. I don't think there's, anything wrong with, getting some guy, pinch runner in or pinch hitter. I know coach was, quick to, especially that Saturday Clemson game, trying to get something going with the pinch hitters. But yeah, as far as, with the pitching, Morehead, I did see this. Morehead State's DH has 7 home runs in 11 games this year.
Dude, oh my gosh,
he's Hunter Thomas. I want to give him his credit right now. Hunter Thomas has 7 home runs in 11 games. Their team has 15 home runs in 11 games.
Man, so that's like their equivalent of Ethan Petrie right there.
Yep. So pretty much you avoid making a mistake to him with runners on, and I think we'll be sitting pretty for this weekend.
I think so. I think we'll see South Carolina have a good weekend here. We'll get into predictions here in a moment. But I will ask you, man, if there's any box you want to see checked off this weekend, it could be a player performing better. It can be a certain facet of the game where South Carolina, you'd like to see them do better. What box would you like to see checked off after Sunday's game? Like, you had a question going into the weekend and it was fully answered.
I would really, I mean, it's such a small sample size stat, but I would really like to see the guys, get some hits with runners on, especially runners in scoring position. I know that's kind of, that was definitely the big thing, last weekend. They were doing a little bit more of that, the last 2 days, but I think for a whole weekend series, not see, close to double-digit guys being left on base. Really being able to kind of capitalize and make teams pay if we're going to get runners on, if we're going to work those counts and, we put things in motion. I'd like to see a little bit more motion. I think this is one of the more athletic teams we've had, the last few years. I'd like to see a little, some guys kind of, I didn't play for Coach Maneri, so I don't know kind of where they are as far as green lights on, guys running and those kind of things. But, if guys have green lights, I'd like to see some guys this is a good weekend to kind of play, not with your, chicken with your head cut off, but, play with your hair on fire a little bit. These are the kind of games to kind of push limits and see where you are as a ball player, and those decisions you can make on your own, because there's nothing worse than a guy having to look to coach tell me what to do. Those things serve their place, but there's got to have some instincts. And I think with the athleticism this team seems to have, I'd like to see some guys kind of push the boundaries and be smart about it. I guess that's kind of the thing with young guys. You never know if they're gonna put them in the wrong spots. But I think these are the good situations to try to force the situation a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think they definitely do need to hit better with runners in scoring position. We saw that a lot last night. We saw that in the 6th inning of that win over Davidson. So you kind of have seen it carry over. But also, I want to see this team be more aggressive, too. I think the one issue I had with the Clemson series is that it's not the fact that they were working counts. That's not the problem. It's the pitches they are taking versus the ones they are swinging at. You see them swing at junk constantly, and they take fastballs or whatever pitch in the zone. It's like, man, why aren't you swinging at that pitch? And it's easier said than done, obviously, because you just don't know what the guy is throwing on the mound. But it's like, at some point, you got to change your approach a little bit and not continuously swing at junk. So I'd like to see that. But I think the other thing is, Maneri mentioned it, figuring out the bullpen a little bit more, because they had a little bit of a rough weekend against Clemson. I thought, you'd like to see them get back to where they've been and figure out the closer role, I think, too, because he did mention today that he doesn't want to have to put Becker back in that kind of role of he initially going into the year, he was going to use him as a hybrid guy, right? Where he may start a game, he may close a game relief. That's kind of what it's been his entire career. But he doesn't want to have to do that. And he's used Brendan Sweeney as the closer, but Brendan got roughed up, to put it lightly, against Clemson. So you hope you can figure that out. But I mean, for closing games out, I mean, how tough is it to get to that point in the game and have a substantial closer? I mean, you guys had Matt Price, obviously, so not a problem there, but not every team is going to have a Matt Price.
Well, no, I mean, funny you say that, though, because that the first couple weeks of 2010, John Taylor was closer, and Matt was kind of that hybrid, long relief. Matt had been stretched out in the fall. Matt wanted to start. So Matt had kind of been stretched out. So John was our closer, and then John got, a couple bad beats, especially in that ECU series. He got, just a couple tough breaks on some, contact, but, just found holes. It wasn't like he was getting, tattooed over the yard. And then, it kind of opened up the closer role. So, Matt got a couple opportunities, Me and Roth we were back there in the back half. Roth had the lefties, I had the righties, along with Mata and John. So it is something that, who's closing right now isn't necessarily going to be the closer the whole year. Who would you kind of like to see get the next crack at, something at the back end?
We may have texted about this recently, but I think maybe I did. I mentioned it to someone. Maybe it was you, but Brandon Stone wouldn't be a bad option back there because he's been really solid so far. And quite frankly, I think he should be starting for this team. But it's because you have Becker, Eskew, McCoy. They're so good right now to where you don't even want to tinker with that. And Stone pitches out of relief right now, multiple innings. He could be that Becker guy that he's your hybrid. He pitches 7, 8, 9 maybe. Or if you're in a spot on like last Friday, for instance, where Becker goes a 3 1/3, you need to save the bullpen a little bit. You could pitch Stone there. So I think it's going to be something that probably you ride with Sweeney right now. Hope he figures it out a little bit more. But I think Stone could eventually evolve into that guy, especially if he's not starting anytime soon.
No, and he has some good swing and miss to his game too, which you always want to have at the back end. Being Yankee fans, we know pitching the contact late in the game isn't always what you want. So no, I definitely Stone definitely has that swing and miss there that I'd also like to see him get a crack at. There's a 2-run lead in the 8th with a runner on. You bring Stone in and kind of see if he can finish it out for you.
Definitely. We'll see what happens with that. Now let's get into a little bit of predictions for the weekend. I know it's Morehead State. It probably seems like South Carolina should sweep them. We'll see if they do. But I mean, still, they're going to be a tough opponent for South Carolina. They've got, like you said, they went up against Kentucky. Louisville had a close loss to Louisville, so we'll see what happens. They've taken their weekend series so far, and they've got a little bit of an Ethan Petrie in their lineup, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, how are you feeling about this weekend, man? And what's the confidence in them, getting the sweep, or how do you see the series going?
I think we're going to sweep. I think we match up well with these guys. Again, they've got the one big bat in there. Big thing, you see in their games is they take a lot of walks and they walk a lot of batters. So, big thing is, our guys really filling up the zone and challenging, even challenging Thomas, because, you want to show that, if you can get the top guy out on their lineup, it kind of sends a message through the rest of the order. But big thing is, just pounding the zone with our guys, and then our guys being ready to hit fastballs in the zone, because they seem to scatter it a little bit. They don't have a ton of guys that build the zone up. So when you get, when they're behind in the count and you're ahead, and, be looking for those fastballs that you were talking about earlier, and be ready to be aggressive and make them pay for it.
Yeah, I got South Carolina sweeping the series too. If they play any bit like they did against Citadel yesterday, they will win this series, no problem. Sweep it, no problem, I think you said it. Fill up the zone. Your starting pitching is so big for you right now, to where I think in SEC play, you need good starting pitching. That's honestly what South Carolina had. You go back to 2 years ago, man, when they had Will Sanders, Noah Hall. I know he got hurt, but Jack Mahoney too. You had a solid rotation and a good pitching staff to where you can win any given series in the SEC. Just based on that alone, you also had a pretty good offense to go along with it. With this team, I see something similar with probably a better pitching staff, one that is healthy right now. Knock on wood, it stays that way with the starting pitching. But I think they're in a good spot right now from that standpoint. I think that sets the tone for the weekend. And then you mentioned it. If this team's issuing walks, like we've said they are with Morehead State, I think South Carolina is going to be very selective at the plate. They're going to hit good pitches, and I really can't say enough about that Wednesday game. It really did wonders for them, and we'll see, man. I mean, like people say, man, just get hot, and you never know what can happen going into SEC play on a potential 6-game winning streak. That could change a lot of things.
For sure. And it's nice that we had the 2 midweek games this week, only have the 1 day off, and then get right back into rolling into a weekend series, so these guys can keep building that confidence and like some people have said, get hot, keep it rolling, and really take advantage of a series to build some confidence.
Yeah, it'll be a huge weekend for South Carolina as they take on Morehead State. First pitch tomorrow night, 7 p.m. SEC Network Plus the entire weekend. Saturday's game, March 8th, 4 p.m. at Founders Park, and then the series finale. Weather permitting, I wouldn't be shocked if we see a doubleheader, man. I'm sure you've had your fair share of those. But Sunday, 1:30 p.m. right now, and then Georgia State next Wednesday at 6:30. So, Ethan, any final thoughts, man, before we get out of here?
No, just thank you so much for having me on. I love talking about our guys. I love talking about the university and the baseball program. And go Cox, and have a good weekend. Stay healthy. Get through this weekend healthy, and get ready, get right for when the fun really starts.
Yeah, I think you definitely passed your audition to come back on the show every week if you would like. So,
my man,
not just for the fact that you're a Yankees fan and all that stuff. So,
absolutely.
But Ethan, man, I appreciate you taking the time to hop on and all that. And we're definitely going to be running it back next week. So that'll do it for us for now. You can check Ethan out on Twitter. You want to give him your Twitter info?
Yeah. What is my handle these days?
I thought I had it memorized, but I'm like,
I got it right here.
It's E-Train. I know that.
Yeah. E_train 32.
Yeah. So definitely give my guy Ethan a follow on Twitter. Definitely would appreciate that. But that'll do it for us for now. I'll be back on Sunday for GC Live Sunday Reset to recap the series, and then we'll do it again next Thursday. So have a great weekend, guys, and we'll see you guys soon.
See you next week, bud.